Hello folks, and welcome to Tuesday's edition of Magoo Sports News. I am as ever Magoo, and this is my program which is entirely dedicated to the wonderful world of sport. Now, firstly, I have to apologise for the Friday's episode. The audio was a little bit out of sync, but managed to get all the issues in there and produce an alright show, I suppose. So anyway, let's get straight into it. Oh my God, what a fantastic weekend of sport. Absolutely loads of things to talk about, lots of drama, lots of amazing sporting action. So basically, let's have a look. What happened? The 4 games I told you to keep an eye out for were all absolutely brilliant. First and foremost, the big one. Arsenal versus Manchester United. Well, there's a few things I have to mention about this game. Arsenal obviously won the game 1-0, but there was a few contentious issues that we have to have a look at. First and foremost, in my opinion, I think that Arsenal looked a lot better throughout the whole game. One of the reasons, I think, was because they had 11 players on the pitch that looked like they were hungry and wanted to play. I am referring to Cesc Fabregas not playing indeed. Now, I think the guy, like I said in the last show, has lost his desire to play for Arsenal. When they play without him, look how good they are. They can beat Manchester United, who are in the semi-finals of a Champions League. So, also, Aaron Ramsey was his replacement. He is such a good player. Such a shame he broke his leg last year, but he seems to be coming back into his own. See what happens next season with Arsenal. Moving on to the second big game, and another completely contentious issue was obviously the goal, which was not a goal. Well, both of them shouldn't have really been a goal. 2-1 to Chelsea, keeps their title hopes alive, and in my opinion, I honestly think if they go on and win the league, then they have to start using video evidence, because they would have cheated to have won the league. Not so much to Chelsea cheating, but just the fact that there was 2 completely not goals that were allowed. So, what else? Video evidence, yes, that's another contentious issue I'm going to have a look at in my contentious issues section. That's not going to be today, because probably time will say that I won't have enough. So moving on, Liverpool beat Newcastle 3-0. And I said this game doesn't have much bearing on the league, but I mean, it has a lot of bearing on next season. Liverpool seem to be dispatching teams with ease. 3-0, 5-0, I mean, they're banging in the goals. They can continue this form into next season. They are title contenders, I tell you. And lastly, Manchester City played West Ham, beat them 2-1. Now, I watched this game myself, and basically, when Man City went 2-0 up, I was thinking to myself, this game's over. Man City are going to stroll at 5-0, 6-0, looking like they are the team that they should be with all the millions they've spent. But then all of a sudden, Demba Ba gets himself a goal, and all of a sudden Man City do look nervous. They just didn't seem to have the same continuity they did when they were 2-0 up. Admittedly, West Ham are fighting for Premiership survival, and they will give a whole great game of it, but still, 2-1 Man City cements them in the Champions League place. I think that's them now finishing 4th. West Ham, I think they're down. That's it. I said if they lost this game, I think they would go down. They're only 3 points behind 4th bottom, but still, it's such a tall order. I mean, they've got an away game and 2 home games. They're not easy games, so we'll see what happens. Not much else happening in the league. A lot of draws. Relegation is still not clearer, although Blackburn did make a big leap towards safety after winning against Bolton 1-0. And essentially the other teams kind of drew, so kept it real close down the bottom. So moving on, let's have a look at the Championship. Oh, it's all happening there. I said there was a lot of big games. There was a lot of big games. There was a lot of wins. There was a lot of draws. There was a lot of losses. I have to mention first, QPR are in a bit of bother. They've been pulled up for a little bit of shady dealing with one of their players, bungs or something, I don't know what it was, but they could be docked 15 points. They've essentially gone to the court today, and the former FA chief Mark Palios has said he expects them to get a 15-point deduction. Now what that means is that Norwich will be promoted, and it means also that second place hasn't actually been set. It could be Cardiff, it could be Swansea. It would be good to see a Welsh team actually up in the Premier League. We have never had a Welsh team in the Premier League, so good for them. I have to mention a big shout out to Norwich. They've got promoted. Well done, good on you. And I think though it's in no small part to Paul Lambert. I don't know if you cast your mind back 2 seasons ago. Paul Lambert got the manager job at Norwich because Brian Gunn, who was the manager at the time, started the season. This is only 2 seasons ago. Bottom or second bottom of the League One, hadn't won a game in ages, and then Paul Lambert took over after about 7-8 games into the season, and he took them all the way to getting promoted. Done it again, and this is literally with the same bunch of players. He hasn't really bought that many players and spent a lot of money. It just goes to show how important to have a good manager is. So look, we have to move on. Leeds basically have blown their playoff chances. Not so much over the weekend. They did beat Burnley 1-0. It's a great result. However, Nottingham Forest beat Scunthorpe 5-1 to improve their goal difference over Leeds by 6 goals. Now, basically, they have a 3-point advantage and a 6-point advantage, which means Leeds would have to win 3-0, Nottingham Forest would have to lose 3-0 or some other variation, but it's not looking likely. It's looking like the playoffs are pretty much set. If QPR do get that 15-point deduction, they will finish 3rd in the playoff places. So, 3rd as in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th in the league. So basically, the other football news has fortunately have to have a mention to the Aberdeen. They beat Inverness Canley Thistle 1-0. It's always a local derby with these guys, and it's always a tough game. Aberdeen weren't looking good this season. I think they were 2nd or 3rd bottom at the time. I think they're still there, but they always beat us. They don't know how they do it, but fair play to them. Take my hat off. Southampton all but promoted from League 2. They'll be up into League 1 again. Good to see the clubs like that come back. You know, had a lot of problems, got relegated twice, and then basically looking like they're on the way back. Also, big story. Like I said, I was telling you about FC United of Manchester on Friday before my show cut out. Now, this team, like I said, were the old board members of Manchester United that got together and formed FC United of Manchester. Now, these guys, like I say, have gone through all the leagues, and they're in the 6th tier at the moment. Had a playoff final game on Monday, yesterday, and they lost, unfortunately. They lost 1-0 to Colwyn Bay, which means that they stay in the Unibond Premier. But never mind, watch out for them. They're, like I say, looking to build a new ground in the old place where Manchester United originally formed. So yeah, snooker. Let's move on to the snooker. What a tournament. I mean, the World Championships has gotten a little bit boring over the last few years, but Judd Trump set them alight. The guy really was a great player. He could pot from anywhere on the table. Unfortunately, though, the poor kid succumbed to the pressure of a World Championship final and got beaten by the old master John Higgins. I mean, for the likes of the actual game, Judd Trump was the better player throughout most of the tournament. But John Higgins is so tenacious. He just hangs in there, keeps clawing back the odd frame, keeps himself in contention. Then that 5-game winning streak that he had, I think it was yesterday's afternoon session, just put him in the front foot, and Judd Trump couldn't really come back. So that's the World Championships over. Snooker, there's a few tournaments on here and there, but nothing amazing. So to the Rugby Union and Heineken Cup semi-finals, Leinster beat Toulouse, and also Northampton beat Perpignan. I have a big smile on my face because both French teams got knocked out, and it's going to be an Ireland versus England final. You couldn't ask for much more. Fantastic. Rugby League, I mentioned the fact that there was a local derby, which was Leeds versus Castleford, and Castleford got an absolute hammering. Anyone that supports Castleford Tigers, you wouldn't have been happy with the result. 48-6 it was over the weekend. Terrible result. So the golf. Westwood won the Ballantynes Championship, shot a 5 under par 67. That's him retaining his world #1 spot. It's looking good for him for a while to be at #1, which is always good to see an Englishman at #1. Bubba Watson won the Zurich Classic as well. I have to make a wee mention to a fella. He was battling it out with a guy called Webb Simpson. Now they're on the 3rd last hole. Webb Simpson putts from miles away, basically, comes to finish his putt off. The ball was like this far away from the hole, and he grounds his club, and the wind blows the ball literally a millimetre. But because of this, he gets a 1-shot penalty. I don't understand what the hell that's going on. The guys who are in charge of golf, I mean, come on, this isn't 1908, this is 2011. Change the rules to make it better. I don't know. So I have to. That's all the sports news there was. There was one other news, which was obviously Sir Henry Cooper passed away. I'd just like to pay tribute to the guy. He was obviously not famous for knocking down Muhammad Ali, but he passed away yesterday. So, next thing I want to mention is basically what's coming up this week. Champions League semi-finals. Some might say they're all done and dusted. It's going to be boring, you know. Manchester United will set out all defensively, as will Barcelona. Barcelona-Real Madrid game is El Clasico, so there might be some sort of worth in watching it. Who knows? If Real Madrid get an early goal, Barcelona might get someone sent off because referees now will be thinking, oh, we can't favour Barcelona because of what Mourinho said. Contentious issues will be my next section. However, I've not got time to mention it today. I'll talk about that either on Thursday. I'm going to do a show this Thursday because obviously to recap what's going on with the Champions League. Then I'll do a show Friday as well to preview the weekend. One last thing before I finish, folks. I was going to talk about this on Friday, but unfortunately didn't get a chance. I'm going to start a new feature so that basically you guys can get involved with my show. I'm going to call it the Pro Spot. Now, the pro spot basically is when you think you know something a little bit more than anyone else. You've noticed something in a sport that the regular pundits haven't seen mentioned, and you would like me to talk about it on my show. I'll put your name up there, bing, and then essentially we'll have a little debate about it, see what you think. Now, I'll start this week's pro spot, and my pro spot is when Johnny Evans played against Fulham at the start of the season. I honestly think that was the end of his Manchester United season, and even maybe his Manchester United career. Now you may be asking yourself, oh, why is that, Magoo? Well, essentially, the guy absolutely got skinned by Bobby Zamora. Manchester United were winning 2-1. He all but lost them that 3 points, vital 3 points at the time, which, as we are seeing towards the end of the season, could be vital. And they conceded a very late goal and essentially went on to draw 2-2. Now, ever since then, Johnny Evans hasn't had a game for Manchester United. And basically Chris Smalling, who was bought last summer, seems to have taken his place. So if you look at the defenders they've got Vidic, Ferdinand, who are the main two, then Chris Smalling as the third place centre-back. Where's Johnny Evans? I don't think he's got a future. So we'll see if he gets sold in the summer. That's one thing that I would like you to keep an eye out. So anyway, if you want to write your pro spot in the comment section below, then I will discuss it and give you my opinion. And well, basically, folks, as always, leave any comments of what you've seen on my show, anything you disagree with, have a little write down below, and we'll have a little debate, etc. Thanks for watching the show, and essentially see you guys on Thursday.